Now, Zambians are voting in a tense election that the president and his main rival have said is a test of the Southern African country's reputation as a stable democracy. Polling began early Thursday morning, that's today, with more than 12,000 polling stations, including in prisons. More than 7 million people, or over 83% of eligible voters, have registered to vote. This, according to the Electoral Commission of Zambia. President Edgar Lungu is counting winning votes on his record of infrastructure developments, mainly Chinese-funded, and the distribution of agricultural inputs such as seeds and fertilizers to millions of farmers. However, his chances could be hurt by a debilitating economic tailspin. Lungu, who came into power in 2015, cast his ballot in the capital, Lusaka. His main rival is 59-year-old Hakainde Hichilema, and this will be his sixth shot at the presidency in the country of 18 million people. Well, to have a sense of what these elections portend for the Southern African country, we're now being joined by FARAI MUVUTI, a senior analyst at the South African Times. Welcome, FARAI. Good to have you.
Hi.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, we're reading that registered voters amounted to about 83%, but was the turnout in line with that projection?
Well, we have to factor in the current public health realities, which is, of course, COVID and the sort of post-pandemic phase. Zambia is still a country that is yet to have a quite sustainable rollout in terms of the vaccination program. So I suppose the public anxiety would have been as a consequence of the obvious health pandemic crisis that the whole world is currently facing. But irrespective of that, the margins of the vote output are quite similar to the previous election. And of course, the intention, of course, is for a large amount so that the margins can be recovered. If you recall the previous election, the current incumbent won the election by a small margin. We're talking about 100,000 votes, that particular difference. So it would have been incumbent upon the PF party and the UNDP to ensure that they had a large turnout so as to ensure that that margin of error, that margin, be it from the side of the incumbent, which is PF, to recover and expand that particular margin. And on the side of the opposition, or multiple oppositions, or 16 of them, it would be to find growth and dig into that and find some winning ground, as it were. But overall, I think the mood has been very peaceful. There have been, subtle reports here and there of skirmishes, but we've not seen any hints of violence. It's very peaceful at the time being.
All right, FARAI, some analysts are saying that this particular election is too close to call. Is that the actual reality on ground?
Oh, it's definitely too close to call. But you'll find that pundits who are my colleagues who are currently in Lusaka, for instance, are giving it away to PF. They're saying that, PF seems to have a dominant force. But of course, partly why it's very hard to call is because in this particular round, there were no sort of rallies as in the traditional sense, no handing out of T-shirts, no going out in large crowds and being able to interact directly with the people, which gives you a national sense of what the mood is, right? But currently, some people say who are in Lusaka, in the capital city, that in that particular terrain, it looks like a PF win. But without actually visiting the extended other regions, the rural constituency and so forth, it is a pretty tight race. So yes, it would be accurate to call it a very close call. However, the government does have the argument of infrastructure on its side because it has delivered that based on its last electoral promises. It has the advantage, of course, of being able to deliver the agricultural output schemes that they had promised to roll out, which is very critical in an agro-based economy combined with mining. It's facing difficult questions around mining. It's answering these difficult questions and equally confronting them. Of course, the opposition has the argument of public finance and market reliability and the international standing of Zambia currently on the basis of what it terms a debt crisis. So these two arguments are going to come straight to head today, and people's voices will be heard in that context.
Okay, by PF, obviously, you mean Patriotic Front, the ruling party that's fronting Lungu as its candidate, just for those who may not be aware. But I know we've dominated a lot of these discussions around the economic situation in Zambia, but surely there are other fallouts that might affect voters' choices. So could you maybe make us aware of some of the competing interests? For example, employment. Could that be a deciding factor?
Yes, youth employment is a major issue. Youth employment is currently down. It's currently at its lowest. And so as government, they'll be looking at that as part of its economic argument. Government is going to have to answer the intangible indices around issues around education, issues around youth employment, as you're so rightly saying, issues around public health, issues around food supply, and so forth. So these intangibles are very much interconnected to the broader question that is economical. And with a huge youth-based voting, it's going to be interesting to see how the youth seeks to define their own future. Some may be pro the infrastructural drive that government has been able to deliver so far. And some might want to look at it from a market-driven basis. Looking at it just purely on a job basis, just looking at the numbers and saying they're so low, I don't see how I have a future with the incumbency. So these are very tricky questions that equally will be filtered through the material realities of the people of Zambia, especially the young.
Okay, FARAI, very quickly, how soon might we know the results?
This I think will be entirely based on the Zambian Electoral Commission, and I think the Zambian Electoral Commission, I think if you're judging by the previous election, they have been blamed for delays. I would imagine that from the previous election they have been able to learn lessons, but so the expectation would be, if it's to base it according to their own law, they have about a week or 2 weeks to release the main results, including the presidential election results. So I suppose it's yet to be seen.
All right, I want to say thank you very much for keeping our eye on the elections in Zambia. FARAI MUVUTI, a senior analyst at the Southern African Times.